I am 99 years old. As the vice chairman of Berkshire Hathaway, I possess billions of dollars in assets. Theoretically, I could buy anything I desire. I could drive a different luxury car every day, live in a palace, and employ a team of private chefs. Yet, if you saw me on the street, you would probably think I was just an ordinary, perhaps even slightly shabby, old man. I have lived in the same house for over 60 years. It isn't luxurious, in fact. It's a bit old. I drive a regular car and often fly economy class. I wear my suits for decades and only replace them when they are worn out. Many people mock me, asking, "Charlie, what is the point of making all that money? You're so rich, yet you don't know how to enjoy it. It's a waste of life." Some even call me miser Munger, but I never get angry about it. I just feel sorry for them because they don't understand the nature of money or true enjoyment. They aren't poor because they earn too little. They are poor because they spend their money in the wrong places. Although I have made a lot of money in my life, I live by an absolute principle. There are certain things I will never spend a dime on, not because I can't afford them, but because buying them is essentially an insult to my intelligence. I call these expenses the poverty tax. There is a strange phenomenon in this world where the poorer people are, the more they like to throw money away in specific areas. Conversely, the wealthy are incredibly stingy in these same areas. This is the dividing line between the rich and the poor. Most people assume that consumption is for happiness or to improve their quality of life. Wrong. In modern commercial society, 90% of consumer traps are designed to empty your pockets and keep you running on a hedonic treadmill forever. Businesses exploit your human weaknesses, your vanity, laziness, anxiety, and ignorance to design one necessity after another. They tell you that if you don't buy this handbag, you won't fit into the social circle. If you don't get this membership card, you'll lose status. If you don't take this supplement, you don't love yourself. So you obediently open your wallet. You think you are buying happiness, but you are actually buying shackles. If every penny you spend goes toward items on this list, it won't bring you lasting joy. Instead, it will drain your future like a vampire. I have seen too many young elite earning hundreds of thousands or even millions a year who still live paycheck to paycheck. Why? Because their lives are filled with stupid expenses. They drink $6 lattes, pay thousands for gym memberships they never use, and buy discounted clothes they never wear. They think these are small amounts, but I tell you, wealth is defined by these small amounts, not the large ones. If you cannot plug these leaks, your bucket of wealth will never hold water. Today, I am going to make my anti-consumption list public. These are the 4 things I resolutely refuse to spend a dime on. Whether I am rich or poor, I will never touch them. If you can cross these for items off your budget, I guarantee that even if your income doesn't increase, your wealth will begin to grow exponentially. More importantly, you will gain something 10,000 times more valuable than the thrill of consumption: the freedom from being fleeced. Are you ready? Let us take a look. The first is the most expensive and stupidest consumption trap of all. The first thing I absolutely never spend money on is consumption meant solely for show. I call this the vanity tax. It is the most expensive and foolish tax in human history, and it is paid voluntarily. Look around at the young people today and the so-called urban middle class. Even if they are drowning in credit card debt, they still insist on buying that designer bag with a giant logo. Even if they live in a tiny rental apartment, they will take out a loan to buy a luxury car. Why do they do this? They will tell you it's for quality of life or to reward themselves. Don't kid yourself. The only purpose of this consumption is to signal to others, I am successful, I have money, and I belong to the upper class. But this is a pathetic illusion. When I was young and studying at Harvard Law School, the place was full of these vain people. Later, when I entered the investment world, I saw even more fools go bankrupt trying to maintain a facade of respectability. You need to understand a fundamental truth. When you spend money on luxury goods, you aren't getting richer, you are getting poorer. If you buy a $50,000 luxury car, your wealth has effectively decreased by $50,000. Your net worth is now tied up in a depreciating piece of metal rather than in cash sitting in the bank generating interest. People always think that only money spent proves wealth. Wrong. Money spent becomes someone else's wealth. Only the money that hasn't been spent, the money sitting in your account, turned into stocks, and real estate is truly your wealth. There is an interesting psychological paradox here that I call the man in the car paradox. When you drive a Ferrari down the street, you think people are admiring you and thinking you're cool. Right? Actually, that's not the case at all. People aren't looking at you, they are looking at the car. They are fantasizing in their own heads. If I were driving that car, I would be so cool. In their eyes, you are just the driver, or even an accessory to the vehicle. You spent a fortune trying to buy respect and admiration, but all you bought was other people's desire and envy. I have never needed clothes, cars, or watches to prove who I am. Warren Buffett is exactly the same. If you met him on the street and saw him in his old suit, you might mistake him for a retired librarian. We don't need an external scorecard, and we don't care what others think. We only care whether the numbers in our accounts are actually growing and whether our judgment is rational. If you need external things to prop up your confidence, it shows that you are empty inside. This kind of vanity consumption is the express lane to poverty for the middle class. It traps you in a vicious cycle known as the Diderot effect. You buy an expensive suit, and to match the suit, you have to buy a pair of good shoes. Once you have the shoes, you feel your old car doesn't match your new outfit, so you upgrade the car. Then you feel your neighborhood isn't upscale enough for your new lifestyle, so you buy a new house. Every upgrade bleeds your wealth dry. In the end, you possess a pile of flashy status symbols, but your foundation, your cash flow, is completely exhausted the moment you get sick or lose your job. This castle built on vanity will instantly collapse. So my first piece of advice to young people is to completely let go of the desire to prove yourself. When you want to buy something expensive, ask yourself this: if I couldn't post this on Instagram, and if no one around me could see that I own it, would I still buy it? If the answer is no, put your wallet away immediately. That is not a need. It is a trap set by marketers, a social conditioning, and a tax on your vanity. Save that money, turn those dollars into your soldiers, and deploy them into the stock market and real assets. When you get old, you will find that the feeling of being an invisible millionaire watching your account balance grow is 10,000 times better than the visible poverty of wearing designer clothes or taking the subway. That is the first type of consumption I never touch. Next, I want to talk about the second type. This type of consumption is more insidious. It operates under the banner of treating yourself, but in reality, it is overdrawing your life force. The second thing I absolutely never spend a dime on is the so-called pseudo-sophisticated lifestyle. I call this the lifestyle tax. Young people today have been brainwashed by a terrible idea. This idea tells you that if you love yourself, you must buy yourself the best of everything. So you start chasing a life that looks perfect on social media. You buy a $6 latte every morning and go out for a $100 brunch on the weekend. You sign up for $1,000 gym membership you rarely use and buy kitchen gadgets that you only use once. You think you are investing in yourself and improving your quality of life. What I tell you, this is not investment. It is waste. It is a lie fabricated by businesses to empty your wallets. I have never in my life paid $6 for a cup of coffee. When Warren Buffett and I have meetings, we drink Cokes bought from the supermarket for pennies a can. We eat the most ordinary burgers and sandwiches. This doesn't mean we don't know how to enjoy life. It means we know how to calculate value. The cost of a cup of coffee is minimal. The rest of the money goes toward paying for Starbucks rent, advertising, and that fancy-looking paper cup. You think you are drinking coffee, but you are actually drinking a stupid tax. These small amounts seem insignificant. You might think, I make a good salary. What's wrong with a cup of coffee? But the loss of wealth often begins with these inconspicuous little leaks. $5 a day is $150 a month, which is nearly $2,000 a year. If you invested that $2,000 with compound interest for 30 years, it would turn into hundreds of thousands of dollars. You aren't just drinking coffee. You are drinking away your future freedom. Then there are those expensive gym memberships. I have seen countless people who, at the beginning of the year, solemnly vow to get fit, spending thousands on a membership and a full set of gear. The result, they go less than 5 times. They aren't buying health, they are buying psychological comfort. They think that as long as they pay the money, they will automatically become thinner and stronger. This is a form of lazy thinking. True health does not require an expensive gym. The secret to maintaining my health in my 90s is very simple. I walk every day, I eat in moderation, and I don't overexert my body. None of this costs money. True sophistication is not piled up with money. True sophistication is a sense of control over your life. It is keeping your home clean, cooking yourself a healthy meal, reading a good book, and walking in the sunshine. None of these things are expensive, but they are what real life is about. The trap of modern consumerism is that it robs you of the ability to perceive simple joys. It makes you believe that only happiness bought with money is real happiness, and only goods with a brand label have value. This is a sickness. If you want to get rich, you must cure this sickness. You must learn to say no to that pseudo-sophistication. When you want to buy an expensive scented candle, ask yourself if opening a window for fresh air isn't more natural. When you want to visit a trendy restaurant just to post about it, ask yourself if a home-cooked meal isn't healthier. When you want to buy that piece of clothing that will only be trendy for one season, ask yourself if a classic style isn't more durable. Save the money from this lifestyle tax. Don't turn your money into profits on a corporation's balance sheet. Turn it into assets in your own account. When you give up this pseudo-sophistication, you will find that your life hasn't gotten worse. Instead, it has become more real and texture. Moreover, your wallet will start to bulge. The solid feeling of watching your savings grow brings a deeper satisfaction than any trendy product ever could. That is the second type of consumption I never touch. Next, we will uncover the third type. This type of consumption is even more dangerous because it often cloaks itself in the guise of learning and self-improvement, making you feel virtuous while you empty your pockets. The third thing I absolutely never spend a dime on is expensive courses that promise quick success. What people call paid knowledge. This may be one of the biggest lies in modern society. In this era, everyone is anxious. You see your peers getting promoted and getting raises. You see others posting their high investment returns online, and you feel like you're falling behind and aren't good enough. That's when a group of so-called mentors jump out. They stand next to luxury cars in sharp suits and look into the camera, telling you, if you just buy my $2,000 course, you can master the code to wealth, achieve financial freedom in a month, and become a winner in life. They aren't selling knowledge. They're selling an illusion, a placebo for your anxiety. I have read thousands of books in my life, but I have never spent money on this kind of crash course. Why? Because true wisdom is never achieved instantly. If you want to learn about investing and the nature of business, the best teachers are not the influencers shouting in short videos. They are the great figures who have already passed away: Benjamin Franklin, Adam Smith, Albert Einstein, John Maynard Keynes. Their thoughts are distilled in classic books that cost only $10 or $20. For just a few dollars, you can converse with the smartest brains in human history. This is the investment with the highest return on investment in the world. Yet, most people are unwilling to read. They think reading is too slow, too tiring, and too boring. They would rather spend thousands of dollars to listen to a so-called mentor tell them second-hand, pre-chewed, and even distorted stories. They think that as long as they pay a high price, the knowledge will automatically enter their brains. It's like wanting to build muscle but refusing to lift weights. Instead, you pay someone a huge sum to lift the weights for you. You watch from the sidelines, hoping you'll grow muscles. Isn't that ridiculous? I have seen many young people hoard countless courses to relieve their anxiety about knowledge. Today they learn finance, tomorrow writing, and the day after that, management. They spend a lot of money and time. The result, because these courses are usually designed to make you feel good and make you think you understand. You gain a false sense of satisfaction. You think you have improved, but you are actually just marching in place. True learning is inevitably painful. You need to chew on difficult theories, think deeply, practice, and make mistakes. You need a long time to build your own mental models. No one can do this for you, and there are no shortcuts. If anyone tells you they have a secret that will bring you success without any effort, they are definitely eyeing your wallet. I often say that if I see someone on the street selling a get-rich-quick scheme, I immediately clutch my pocket and walk away. Because if the method really worked, why wouldn't he keep it to himself and make a fortune quietly, instead of wasting his breath trying to sell it to you for little tuition money? So, my advice is to save the money you would spend on those expensive courses and buy a few classic biographies or read some company annual reports instead. Or even subscribe to a high-quality business journal. These subscriptions are cheap, but the value they contain is extremely high. Furthermore, you must give up the greedy desire for quick results, admit your ignorance, and acknowledge that learning is a long process. When you stop trying to buy shortcuts, you plug the third big hole in your wealth bucket. You not only save money, but more importantly, you protect your brain from being occupied by garbage information and false values. The truly wealthy are lifelong learners, but they are also the most selective learners. They read only the best books, talk only to the smartest people, and think only about the most fundamental questions. They would never pay for someone else's second-hand opinions. All right, we have covered vanity consumption, pseudo-sophisticated lifestyles, and the stupid tax of courses. Now we must face the last one, which is also the most hidden and easily overlooked consumption trap. This trap often appears when you are most relaxed. It operates under the banner of socializing, but it secretly corrodes your wealth and your soul. The fourth thing I absolutely never spend a dime on is low-quality social activities, as well as entertainment that brings only fleeting pleasure. Many people think socializing is an investment, believing that knowing one more person opens one more path. So they are keen on attending various dinner parties, drinking and toasting, and calling each other brother to fit in. They often treat others to meals and give gifts. They think they are building a network and paving the way for the future. But I tell you, 99% of socializing is ineffective. The friends you make through eating and drinking will rarely be there to help when you face real difficulties. The essence of networking is not who you know, but who you are. If you have no value yourself, knowing all the big shots in the world won't help you. You are just a name in their contacts, or even a passerby they can delete at any time. I don't have many friends in my life, but every one of them is sincere. My friendship with Warren Buffett has lasted for over 60 years, and we have never needed to give gifts or treat each other to meals to maintain it. We rely on shared values and appreciation for each other's wisdom, and a tacit understanding that allows us to sit together in silence without it being awkward. This kind of high-quality relationship does not need to be bought. On the contrary, relationships that require money to maintain are inherently fragile and even hypocritical. When you spend money on this ineffective socializing, you not only lose money, but more terribly, you lose your time. You could have used that time to read, to think, to be with your family, or to improve your core competencies. Instead, you wasted it on meaningless pleasantries and bragging. This is a double waste. Besides ineffective socializing, there is another common type of consumption I call garbage happiness. For example, getting drunk at a bar or gambling at a casino, or getting addicted to entertainment venues full of sensory stimulation. These expenses can bring you fleeting pleasure and an instant dopamine hit. They make you feel like you're in heaven, but this pleasure is cheap and toxic. It makes you addicted and makes it increasingly difficult to endure a plain life. It compels you to constantly increase your spending in pursuit of the next, stronger thrill. In the end, you hollow out not only your body, but also your wallet. True happiness should be peaceful and lasting. It comes from the sense of achievement after solving a difficult problem, the fulfillment after reading a good book, and the warmth of spending time with your family. This kind of happiness does not cost a fortune. My favorite entertainment in life is reading. A book costs only $10 or $20, yet it can bring me days of joy and even a lifetime of inspiration. I also enjoy playing bridge, a game that requires intellectual engagement. It keeps my mind sharp. None of these things are expensive, but they bring me true satisfaction. If you want to be rich, you must learn to distinguish between garbage happiness and high-level happiness. You must learn to enjoy solitude, when you no longer need lively social gatherings to prove your existence, and no longer need sensory stimulation to numb your nerves. You possess a powerful strength. You can invest all that saved money and time into what truly matters. You can build your assets, hone your skills, and construct your true moat. You will find that as you become more excellent and wealthy, the people you once had to pay to please will start coming to you. That is the truth of life. So we have listed these four expensive bills: the vanity tax, the lifestyle tax, the stupid tax, and the garbage happiness tax. Now you may understand why, despite having money, I still live such a simple life. Because I know that accumulating wealth is not just about increasing income, but also about reducing expenses. In this world full of temptations, only those who stick to their principles and refuse to be fleeced can make it to the end. Finally, I want to tell you what kind of life you will have once you give up these four things. It is not just financial freedom, it is a freedom of the soul. Now that you have eliminated those four expensive bills, You no longer buy status. You no longer pursue pseudo-sophistication. You no longer pay the stupid tax. And you no longer engage in ineffective socializing. You might ask, Charlie, if I don't spend money, what is the point of making it? Am I making money just to be a miser? Just to watch the numbers in my bank account grow? Of course not. The reason I ask you to save this money so you can possess one thing. This thing is 10,000 times more precious than luxury cars, designer watches, or big houses. It is called the power of choice. When you no longer consume for the sake of appearances, you don't need to endure a job you hate just for a high salary. You can quit any time to do what you truly want to do. When you no longer overspend on a fake lifestyle, you don't need to worry about the bank. You can sleep soundly when an economic crisis hits without worrying about next month's mortgage. When you no longer pay for anxiety, you gain the ability to think independently. You won't be exploited by those who peddle fear. You will grow at your own pace. When you no longer waste time on ineffective socializing, you can enjoy high-quality companionship. You can spend your time with the people who truly love you and on the things that truly make you happy. This is the freedom of not being fleeced. True wealth is not about how many things you own, but how much time you own that is not controlled by others. When I was young, I also thought wealth meant owning more. But living to 99, I finally understand that the essence of wealth is actually owning less, owning fewer desires, fewer entanglements, and less fear. When I sit in my modest house, wearing my old suit and reading a book from decades ago, I feel incredibly rich, because I know that all of this is my own choice, not something forced upon me by consumerism. I didn't spend my money on illusory status. I spent it where it could generate compound interest. I spent it on things that made me smarter and freer. This is my final advice to young people. Do not be confused by the noise of this world, and do not be deceived by flashy advertisements. Be brave enough to be an outsider. When others show off their new cars, you silently save your money. When others chase trendy spots for social media, you quietly read a book. When others anxiously look for shortcuts, you patiently refine yourself. This sounds stupid, slow, and boring. But believe me, it is the shortcut to true freedom. When you reach my age and look back, you will find that the money you didn't spend, and the time you didn't waste have become the most solid armor of your life. They have protected your dignity, supported your dreams, and allowed you to live like a true winner in this cruel world. I am Charlie Munger, and I hope these lessons can save you decades of detours. Starting today, learn to say no to stupid consumption and save your money for true freedom.